everyone, Erin here. Welcome to June, or almost June, depending on when you're watching this. For some reason, for the halfway point of this year, I just really wanted to go back to basics, so I'm just sticking to a fully black and white layout. I've already sketched it out in pencil, but I'm just going to be using a Sharpie pen, just a normal fine liner, and my Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen. You could absolutely skip the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen altogether and just stick to a fine liner and pencil if you need to lay it out, or if you want to skip that step, you can also do that. I find having everything sketched out in pencil definitely helps me if I have an idea in mind. And you'll see that I'm definitely going to wish I'd skipped the Tombow brush pen, but we'll get to that later. I'm also going to use a ruler for this layout, which is not typical of me generally, but I was wanting crispy clean lines, so I've got a little ruler on hand as well. Let's get started here. So I'm ditching the cover page and going for a 2-page calendar spread this time, and I've got my Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen here. It's a hard-tipped brush pen, it's quite firm, which makes it a little bit tricky to work with, but I'm trying to get the hang of it, so I'm trying to sort of force myself to use it a lot, and I'm just going to go really slowly and do this spaced out June header up the left-hand side of the first page here. I'm going to be doing a lot of this really spaced out hand lettering throughout this layout because I find it's relatively easy. It's got a lot of impact without a lot of effort, and the trick is just to kind of go slow and space things out very carefully. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later on with one of the other titles. This is in real time, what you're seeing just here. I went really slowly just to make sure that the up and down flow was kind of good. That's what I find the most difficult with this pen. I know some people can get a really fine line with it, but I'm still working on that. I don't quite have it down yet. There's a lot of space in this calendar layout. I've been doing single page calendars for a while, but Australia, where I live, is starting to open back up. We're kind of coming out to the other side of the worst of the coronavirus, hopefully, if everybody keeps being socially responsible and staying away from each other as much as possible. So I'm giving myself a little bit more space here for events because I do have a little bit of work starting back up in June. Haven't had any work going on since March, so that's going to be nice to be getting back out there with my camera because I'm a photographer. It's what I do. I'm just going to clip the pages down here because that makes it much easier to draw a straight line when you aren't fighting some curvature of the page. And I'm switching to my Sharpie pen. Got my handy dandy ruler here, which I believe I've had since high school, or maybe my partner's had since high school and I've stolen it from him. Regardless, I'm just going to rule out the left page first and then the right page to avoid any smudging with the ruler, because I do find, depending on the kind of pen you're using, the Sharpie pen honestly probably won't budge, but if you're using a pen that smudges a little bit more than this one, then you're going to want to definitely work left to right if you are right-handed like me. If you're left-handed, honestly, you're going to know better than me what you need to do in order to not smudge things. I found this layout on, I'm pretty sure I actually just Google searched like minimal bullet journal layouts and this one came up, so I don't know what the exact measurements were of the one that I found. Unfortunately, I can't credit it because it was in a list of like rounding up some minimal layouts and they didn't credit the original artist. So please, if this is your layout, please let me know. I've just realized that I've been bullet journaling in total silence up until this point, so I'm just going to put some lo-fi beats on and then we're going to get into the calendar. So I've switched back to the Tombow Fudenosuke to put down just the initial of each day of the week along the top here. I like to start my weeks on a Monday, so I'm starting with the M, and June also very conveniently starts on a Monday, so I really love when that happens because it makes laying things out so much easier and pretty because everything's nicely lined up. So in case you're wondering what the spacing on these boxes are, these open boxes because they don't have vertical lines dividing them, they are 6.5 spaces wide by 5 spaces tall. Just adding in the numbers here. For each day of the week, there are 30 days in June. It is the end of the financial year here in Australia, which means tax time coming up soon. It's also the middle of winter here in Australia, which is my favourite time of year, which is, I guess, also another reason why moving away from colour didn't feel like a bad idea. I know there's going to be a whole lot of summer bullet journal layouts going around for June elsewhere in the world, but mine's just going to be crispy black and white. And there it is. This is the June cover page / calendar. I did consider adding some stamps or something along the top just to decorate it a bit further, and if you wanted to do that you could, but I was really enjoying the very clean minimalist vibe I was getting here, so I decided not to. And then we turn the page and we see why Erin regrets the Fudonosuke. I haven't written directly onto the page with it in a while. I've kind of been writing on other things and then sticking it into the book, and I forgot about how it can ghost and bleed through the page, which is making me a little sad. It's bled through onto my reading tracker on the other page beforehand, and also a little bit onto my habit tracker. After this video, I actually went back through with some correction tape and just covered those spots up so that they weren't as obvious, but I didn't think to do that until after I'd finished filming the video, so just know that I did that, I guess. And speaking of correction tape, I've taken that line for my habit tracker page here too far up, so I'm just gonna fix that up so that I can still get my heading in there the way I envisioned it. No felt tip pen seems to write too well over the top of correction tape, but I prefer it over like a liquid correction option. So that's what I'm going to go with here, and just not look too closely because it's only got to last a month, right? So what I'm finding for these spaced out cursive type handwriting headings is it helps very much to draw out just the spacing of each letter first, so you can make sure that they're relatively equidistant from each other, and from there you can go in with your pen and just kind of join everything up as you go. So sorry guys, you don't get to see me doing the gratitude side because the camera stopped recording and I didn't realize I'm actually testing out the Fuji X-T200 at the moment for a camera review, which is also something that I do on my channel if you're new here. So if you're interested in that, do make sure that you subscribe so you can see what I think of the Fuji X-T200 and a bunch of other cameras as well. It doesn't record for as long in 4K as my G9 does, which is what I usually film on, the Lumix G9, so I didn't realize when it had cut out, and I was quite proud of my gratitude heading too, so that's a bit of a shame. But you get the idea because it was the exact same concept as what I did on the habit tracker page there, and also on pages to come, so don't worry, you haven't missed anything. The habit tracker page is the same way I always set it up. The only thing here is that because I'm only using black pens for this setup, I'm not able to add in any kind of guiding lines like I did on my previous habit tracker that helped me to keep things spaced out. Sometimes it's a bit tricky to see which column you're filling in, and I'll fill in the wrong one occasionally. So having these lines in a really pale grey that you can see here in my May setup really helped me to stay on the right line here. You can see I'm filling in a few things that I haven't realised that I hadn't filled in May yet as I go while I add these down. The gratitude page is super simple, just the day of the week and the date next to it, and then I pop in one line of gratitude every day, or at least every time I remember, and that just helps me to stay positive, which is always nice. So simple, so effective. I really enjoyed that this particular bullet journal setup was so much faster than the ones I usually do. I don't honestly take that long. It usually takes me maybe an hour to set up for the month ahead, which is not bad. This one genuinely only took me maybe 20-25 minutes, which is very nice. We're moving on to the next page here, and this is my expense tracker. One of my very favorite spreads to do because it's so simple, it's really effective, it's kind of changed my life a little bit. So once again, just writing over my pre-spaced out letters and joining them up as I go so it makes this little wavy kind of classy look here. I'm probably showing my age here, but if anyone remembers the Babysitter's Club books, sometimes the characters would write letters to each other and you could see the different handwriting for each of them in the books, and I always loved, is it Jessie's handwriting? It was really like flowy and pretty, and it had big embellishments on either side of the letters, and this heading style reminds me a little bit of that, so it's a nice throwback to my childhood self and being a Babysitter's Club fan. Not completely in love with the way I've messed up the I in social media here, but I'm very happy with the expenses side, so that's nice. I thought I'd get the headings out of the way before I get on to the rest of the pages for this setup. This is actually just the same way that I did it last month, so if you watched my May bullet journal setup, you already know the drill here, but it's just a table. I didn't allow myself a lot of space on the expenses table in May because I was trying really hard to not spend money, and I haven't gone over it yet, so that's nice. I've only got room for 7 more purchases, so I have definitely not been quarantine shopping, but I know it's what's been getting a lot of people through. So if that's you, don't feel bad. We all must cope in our own ways. So it's a table, as I said, and then that table's just divided into 3 columns, or whatever works best for you. The first column is item, the second column is cost, and the third column is category. And then at the end of the month, I go through and tally everything up, and I move it into my big overview expense tracker for the whole year at the beginning of the book, and then I can see patterns of this is where my money is going, where it probably shouldn't be, i.e. the vast majority going out to eat with friends or getting food delivered, which has been a little bit easier this year, to be honest, to not do since everything was shut. Here's the social media page. There are really kind of 4 weeks in June this year, so I'm just splitting the page into 4 so that I can do all my social media planning for each week in a particular box. I probably should have labeled which week was which here, but I forgot, and I haven't done that yet, so I guess I should do that once I finish recording this voiceover. Oh, I love that, how minimal and clean that looks. Okay, and then we're on to the weekly setups. So even though I have given myself a 2-page calendar at the beginning of this month, I'm still only going to allow myself single-page weeklies because I don't think there's going to be that much going on in terms of work. I can still fit, I'm trying not to give myself too many things to do in a day. And this is very, very similar to my April weekly layout, which was inspired by an account called Sassy Pigeon HQ, and she was in turn inspired by, I think it was Little Grey Journal, Little Grey Bujo. I will pop the info in the description anyway to give credit where it's due. But basically, they are horizontal rows, I guess, that are 4 boxes high, and I'm doing that. I guess it's similar hand lettering to the headings on the previous pages, but I'm not spacing the letters out quite as much. I didn't want them to take up too much space because sometimes the bits of the lettering that go above and below the line can kind of eat into your space for tasks and events. I was kind of giving myself 2 spaces worth of line before the text started, and then I forgot, and Friday's a little bit left-oriented, a little bit more left-oriented than I would have liked. And I also worked out after doing the Monday that it was going to be easier to join onto a line that's already there rather than trying to connect the tail of the Y onto nothing. So for the second page, I'm learning from that mistake, and for the rest of the first page, I guess, and I'm going to draw out the ends of those lines first and then go back in for the lettering. Ordinarily, I am not a ruler in the bullet journal kind of girl. Like I mentioned earlier, I will just go straight in with my pen and freehand all of my lines. Oh, sorry, once again, camera's dropped out. Sorry, guys. I'll be back to the G9 for next month, I promise, and I know what I'm doing with that camera. And then I'm just adding the number tucked into the inside corner for each number of the day, and that's the setup. So easy, so simple. You don't even have to do nice handwriting like I'm trying to do here. You can just literally draw all the way across and write the day above the line or below the line or wherever you would like. Such a straightforward design. I really enjoy it. My partner also bullet journals, my partner Chris, and his journal is much more along the lines of this setup month to month than my usual collagey, drawy, doodly, sometimes painty layouts are. And I kind of get why he does it like that after kind of going back to basics here. And I definitely also used to be a very much single pen bullet journal kind of girl, but you do get caught up with stuff as you go along, don't you? So it was nice to get back to my roots, I suppose. I would usually only show you 1 or maybe 2 for single page weeklies for the weekly setup pages, but I'm going to go ahead and just finish it off here because I'm still experimenting with the best way to get this writing that is part of the line thing going on. So this time I'm trying to make sure I keep everything indented as far as I wanted it indented, because I think I messed up again on the last page. And then I'm just going to connect the lines up with the ruler, which also is not the most seamless way to do it. I don't know. You can definitely tell that I've kind of come back in with the ruler after the fact and joined it back up. So I think the previous page's method was maybe better. So I decided for the last one that I was just going to totally freehand it and to hell with the ruler, and it was fine too. This is the way I originally did it for April because there was a little bit of colour in that theme as well, where the number took up a bit more space inside a little scribbly circle. If you'd like to see that setup that's got a little bit more going on, I'll pop a link to that up in the cards so you can see. I also have a video about bullet journaling for beginners and some things that I wish I knew when I was starting out and some pitfalls to avoid maybe. So do make sure that you check that one out too if you're new to bullet journaling. I definitely have learned a lot over the past 3 years of organizing my life in a little book. I've only done up until the 28th of June in my weekly setups because, just gonna quickly flick back to my calendar page here for demonstration. Like I said, I like my weeks to begin on a Monday, and the last 2 days of June, there's only 2 days of that week that fall into June. So because there are 5 days of that week that fall into July, I'm going to move that weekly into the July setups. It makes more sense to me that way. The only other thing left to do is to stick a little tab at the beginning so that I can quickly leaf my way through to each month. These little post-it plastic stickers definitely are doing the job, and because this is the only thing I use them for, if I keep it up at this rate, I'm going to be using these post-its for like the next 4 or 5 years in my bullet journals for exactly this purpose. And I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's a good investment. And here we have the final flip through for June 2020. There's something really calming about just having a simple black and white layout like this that's not too embellished and not too hectic. It's just very straightforward, very easy to use, and that is exactly what I was looking for out of June. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this video, got something out of it. If you do end up using anything along the lines of this layout, if it inspires you or if you recreate it, please do tag me. I am at Erins_journal on Instagram. You can also find me on some other places on social media, and all of the links to that, as well as all of the equipment that I use for journaling and for photography and for making these videos, is all linked down below in the description as well. I hope you're doing well. I'm thinking of you, and I hope that you have a wonderful month of June ahead. See you again soon. Bye.